The anime tells the story of Umaru, a high school girl with beautiful looks, top grades, and excellence in everything. However, Umaru has a secret lifestyle that is very different from what she always displays outside. While at home, she is drawn in a chibi manner and calls herself Kamaru. She lives in an apartment with her older brother, Taihei, an office worker. Even though Umaru is a popular student at school, when at home, she is always lazy, very spoiled by her older brother, and always acts casually, and it often irritates Taihei. Not infrequently, Umaru and Taihei fight over trivial things. Even though his younger sister is always annoying and troublesome, Taihei still fulfills Umaru's wishes. When at home, Umaru is a die-hard otaku who loves anime, games, and manga, so she always demands her brother to facilitate her hobbies. One day, while Umaru was playing with her pet hamster, she accidentally saw an advertisement about a pet contest with a prize of 1 million yen. Immediately she had the idea of registering her pet hamster to enter the contest, where she wished that she could train her hamster to bring food for her and transport her to the toilet. However, she needed at least 100 hamsters to do all that, whereas now she only has 2 hamsters, so she asked her older brother to buy another hamster. Taihei remembered when he first bought a hamster for Umaru as her pet. At first, he was unsure if she could take care of animals, considering how lazy she was doing everything. But she could do it, although, in terms of cleaning the cage and animal waste, Taihei always did it. The next day, Umaru becomes the center of attention at school because of her good looks. She has a close friend and her classmate, Nana Ibina, who greatly admires her beauty. While in class, Nana got a very low test score, while Umaru managed to get a perfect score. One of Umaru's classmates, Sylphan Teshibana, is very competitive and always sees Umaru as her rival in academics and sports. However, Umaru is always superior to Sylphan, and even she is very talented in music. Nana praises Umaru as someone versatile. She lives in the same apartment building as Umaru, but she lives downstairs. Taihei was surprised because Umaru always got perfect scores in exams, whereas at home, she was always lazy and was never seen studying. One day, Taihei accompanies Umaru to play a game, even though he always loses to her because he is not good at playing games. Taihei then intends to go shopping to buy groceries, but Umaru whines, asking to come along and looks sulky because he chooses to shop instead of accompanying her to play games. Because they kept sulking, Taihei invited Umaru to eat ice cream even at the supermarket. However, Umaru's mood did not improve, so he finally said he would accompany her to play games when he got home. They then played games until late at night. Shortly afterward, Taihei was very surprised to find that his apartment was neat and clean, and Umaru was beautiful. It turned out that Nana was visiting the house that night, so Umaru behaved like that. Realizing that Nana's presence at his house can change Umaru's attitude to be sweeter and more responsible, Taihei tells Nana that she can visit and will always be warmly welcomed at his house. The next day, Umaru intends to enter the suitin contest because she wants a jumbo-sized doll. She then persuaded her brother to take part in the contest. However, when they arrived at the location of the competition, Umaru went somewhere, so Taihei had to enter the suitin contest alone and managed to win the contest after defeating Nana in the final round. Taihei and Nana then went home together, and he decided to give the doll as a gift to her because she seemed to really want the gift. She thanked him and was very happy when she received the gift. But apparently, Umaru knows this and is very angry with her brother for giving the doll as a gift to Nana, so Taihei is forced to buy a similar doll with his own money to stop sulking at him. While shopping, Umaru whines at Taihei, asking to buy the newest game, but they accidentally meet Nana, so Umaru can't help but change into her beautiful mode so that Nana doesn't know her true nature. However, Umaru kept whining at Taihei until he finally relented and complied with his younger sister's request. One fine morning, Nana is waiting for Umaru to go to school together. While waiting for Umaru, Nana remembered coming to Tokyo for the first time. She turns out to be from Akita Prefecture and occasionally reverts to dialect when nervous. Because of her breasts, she lacks confidence as people look at her. The first person to look her in the eyes is Taihei, whom she later has a crush on and gets flustered whenever he gives her compliments. Umaru and Nana looked worried and tense because they were about to face the midterm exams. Even though Umaru only studied for a short time, she managed to get perfect scores and got the first rank in school. Umaru, who is beautiful, smart, talented, and kind, is always the talk of the school because everyone seems to like her. But it turns out a girl named Motoba always stares sharply at Umaru and seems to hate her. Umaru asks Nana about Motoba, but according to her, Motoba doesn't mean anything bad and doesn't hate her. In the afternoon, Umaru, who was at home waiting for her brother's return, was suddenly surprised by the appearance of Motoba at her house. Umaru, who is still in chibi mode, introduces herself as Umaru's sister, Kamaru, to Motoba so that her true identity is not revealed. Motoba seems to really like small children and is very comfortable around them. She then told her the purpose of coming there, which turned out to be wanting to return Umaru's student card, which had been lost, and wanted to be friends with her because it turned out that she really admired her. The next day at school, Umaru then approached Motoba and said they would be friends. Even Umaru invited her to always come home from school together. Motoba feels very happy because she can finally be friends with her. Apart from being an expert in computer games, Umaru turns out to be quite good at playing arcade games, so the employees in the arcade game arena already recognize her as a great player who always got the first rank. Although Umaru is often cheated by employees in the game arena, she can always win, even bringing home lots of prizes. The next day while at school, Umaru and her classmates were doing tennis practice. Since it was Umaru's first time, she seemed to have a hard time playing tennis, which Sylphan immediately took advantage of to show that her tennis skills were much better than Umaru's. However, during the match, Umaru got help from Motoba, who is good at playing tennis, so that she could play tennis quite well, although, in the end, she felt sore all over her body. Elsewhere, Taihei gets a gift from his junior at work, a young man named Alex. He then brought the gift to his house. But due to an unintentional incident, Umaru broke the gift. Because Umaru didn't want her brother to be angry, she bought some of the equipment needed to repair the gift. In the end, she managed to improve the gift, although not perfectly. Actually, Taihei didn't mind if Umaru broke the gift and forgave her mistake. However, what annoyed him was that she bought all the equipment using his money. A few days later, Umaru entered an arcade game competition held in the gaming arena and asked Taihei to accompany her. Even though she is a pretty great player, she is quite overwhelmed by her opponents, who are no less powerful. On the other hand, it turns out that Sylphan participated in the game competition and managed to advance to the final round, facing Umaru. At first, Umaru had a hard time dealing with Sylphan, a pro player like herself. However, after seeing Taihei in the stands watching her match, she became excited again and decided to beat Sylphan. Meanwhile, Sylphan, who had been very confident in her abilities, suddenly lost control when she saw the presence of Alex, who was watching the competition. Because Sylphan was caught off guard at that time, Umaru took the opportunity to strike back and finally managed to defeat her. Umaru managed to win the competition and was named the best player. The next day at school, Sylphan looks back to her usual self, always looking confident in all her abilities. Even though her classmates think she is just an arrogant girl who likes to seek popularity and doesn't really have great abilities. However, Umaru doesn't think so because she admits that Sylphan is really a great player who can beat her opponents and advance to the final round independently. When the results of the semester exams were announced, Umaru looked relieved and happy because she managed to get first place, while Nana looked down because she was in the lowest rank. Even though Sylphan had to admit that Umaru was greater than her, she still felt confident and believed that one day she would succeed in defeating Umaru. Summer vacation has arrived. Umaru usually spends her holidays playing arcade games in the game arena. That day, she accidentally met Sylphan while visiting the game arena. Because Umaru disguised her identity in a game competition, Sylphan did not recognize her and called Umaru by her alias, namely Umaru. Sylphan, who has ambitions to be the best, challenges Umaru to compete in the Street Fighter game, but she refused, so they decided to play the jackpot game. While being engrossed in playing, Sylphan accidentally won a prize of 5,000 coins. But because she thought that the jackpot game did not inspire her competitive side, she casually gave the gift to an old man who seemed to be in a slump because he always lost playing games. She then invites Umaru to play some other games, but she still feels dissatisfied because the game is as boring as the jackpot game. Because Sylphan seemed to really want to win, Umaru gave her the award pin she got after winning the competition game some time ago. Sylphan seemed very happy with the gift and then asked Umaru to be friends with her and work together to defeat Umaru Thoma, without realizing that Umaru and Umaru Thoma were the same person. Besides playing games in the game arena, Umaru spends her summer holidays lazing at home all day. That day, Motoba came to Umaru's house, and she seemed to be enjoying her time with Umaru, who was in chibi mode. Because she thinks Umaru looks very cute and adorable when she sleeps, Motoba secretly takes a photo of her. However, due to an unexpected incident, Motoba fell to the ground in her arms, hugging Umaru, and immediately fell asleep. When Taihei finally came home in the afternoon, he looked very annoyed that Umaru had turned on the air conditioner all day long instead of opening the window. He then turned off the air conditioner and opened the window, waking Umaru and Motoba. The next day, Taihei realized that his sister didn't have many clothes for a teenage girl. Therefore, he gave Umaru money and told her to buy some clothes. Umaru then invites Nana and Motoba to go shopping together. Umaru realizes that Nana and Motoba are not yet familiar with each other, so she invites them to try on some clothes together to become closer and close friends. Even though her brother told her to buy clothes, Umaru thought that the clothes were too expensive and seemed to be considering whether to buy the clothes or buy her favorite drink, which was much cheaper. In the end, Umaru was tempted by the latest video game and spent the money to buy the video game and bought a tank top with the remaining money she had. Summer vacation is finally over, and Umaru has to go back to school. Elsewhere, Taihei is seen helping Alex and another coworker, a young man nicknamed the Bomber. However, their boss seemed dissatisfied with the results of their work, so they were asked to fix it. Alex and Bomber looked envious during lunch because Taihei always brought a very delicious lunch and thought that he had a girlfriend. However, Taihei said that the lunchbox was made by his younger sister. When Taihei was fast asleep, Umaru, who couldn't sleep, finally decided to play a game while enjoying her favorite snack. However, she just realized that the cola drinks in her refrigerator are out of stock, so she plans to go to the nearest convenience store to buy cola drinks. This was the first time Umaru had gone out of the house in the night. Even though she was first afraid, she dared to go because she didn't want to replace the pleasure of drinking cola with other drinks. She finally managed to buy the drink and returned home safely. However, when Umaru got home, Taihei was already awake and looked panicked because he couldn't find Umaru anywhere, so he immediately scolded her for going out alone. The next day was a day off for Taihei because he had to work hard last summer vacation. Umaru, who had to go to school, thought her brother would be lazing at home. In fact, Taihei felt really bored after he finished cleaning and tidying the house and cooking for dinner. So bored of not knowing what to do, he finally fell asleep until Umaru came home from school and woke him up. Umaru thought that her brother had fallen asleep and had forgotten to cook dinner. But it turns out that he has already cooked Umaru's favorite delicious meat dish. When Taihei finally returned to work, he had to finish the work before the allotted deadline, so he often continued his work at home. However, Umaru often bothered her brother while working at home, so he took the initiative to seal off their bedroom. Umaru agreed to her brother's idea because she thought he would not scold her again for always being lazy. But apparently, Umaru soon became bored because she couldn't prank her brother, so she always stole opportunities to peek at Taihei's place to disturb her brother. In the end, Taihei concluded that partitioning their bedroom was not a good one since they were used to sleeping together. The next day on a day off, Motoba visits Umaru's house and meets Taihei, who accidentally to be off work. The three of them then decide to play a game of Monopoly, where Umaru always has the good fortune to be rich and has an impressive job, while Taihei has to start from scratch and work hard to make all his dreams come true. However, it is different for Motoba, whose fate has worsened after experiencing a failure in her career and who has to work hard by doing low-paying jobs to make ends meet. Even though it's all just a game, Taihei, Umaru, and Motoba seem to have fun and really enjoy it. Taihei then asks Umaru to continue to be friends with Motoba because she is a good girl. A few days later, Umaru's birthday arrived. Umaru had written a list of gifts that she would ask Taihei, but her brother seemed to not remember her birthday because he was acting so casual. However, Umaru gets lots of gifts and birthday wishes from her friends at school. Thinking that Taihei must have prepared something for her, Umaru rushed home. And sure enough, Taihei was preparing a surprise birthday party for her. Finally, he admitted that he had prepared everything for her and intended to surprise his beloved sister. The next day, Nana took Umaru and Taihei out for lunch, and the three of them went to Nana's favorite ramen restaurant. Umaru seemed to really enjoy the ramen dishes at the restaurant, but not so with Taihei, which he thinks is very spicy. He thanks Nana for taking him and Umaru to lunch together and hopes they can do it again sometime. On the other hand, it turns out that Bomber knows that Taihei often goes with two different girls and has even been seen going out with both of them at once. He thinks that Taihei is a masher who often takes advantage of high school girls. Hearing this, Taihei immediately became irritated and said that one of the girls was his sister and his sister's friend. Bomber does not believe Taihei's words and decides to follow him to his house. Arriving there, Bomber met Umaru, who was sleeping in chibi mode and thought she was very cute and adorable. Umaru, who suddenly woke up, was surprised because she thought Taihei had changed. However, Taihei immediately explained that Bomber was his co-worker. Bomber finally asked permission to leave, and when he got home, it was revealed that he was Motoba's older brother. Although Bomber always tries to be nice to his sister, Motoba always annoys him. Taihei stumbled across an adorable cat and decided to follow it on the way home. However, he ended up getting lost and having trouble finding his way home until finally, he recalled old memories of his mother that led him to find his way home. A few days before Christmas, Umaru was surprised by the appearance of snow and rushed to wake her brother. Taihei gave up his intention to go shopping that day and set up a warm table for the winter. Taihei and Umaru cleaned the house for the whole day before preparing the heating table. But because Taihei was too tired, Umaru finally fell asleep and forgot her plan to laze around while playing games and enjoying snacks. Finally, Christmas Eve arrived. Umaru had made plans to laze around and play games until the morning with her brother while eating the delicious snacks they had prepared. However, Taihei never came home from work because he had to work late and finish his work with Bomber. Not long after, their manager, Kanao, came to their office to make sure they got their work done. Bomber can be heard complaining about working late on Christmas Eve, even though he wishes he could spend more time with his sister on Christmas Eve. Hearing this, Kanao felt pity and finally allowed Bomber and Taihei to go home to spend Christmas Eve with their families. Taihei then suggested that the three of them have dinner together before going home, but Kanao refused and said she would have dinner with her family. In fact, she spent Christmas Eve alone watching DVDs at her house. Bomber and Taihei finally got home, and they took the time to put on Santa Claus costumes, then took a photo together and sent it to Kanao to cheer her up. Taihei finally came home and met Motoba at the front door. He then invites her to come into his house and spend Christmas Eve with Umaru, while Bomber has to swallow the disappointment of not finding his sister at his house. Approaching the new year, it is seen that many people flock to the temple to pray and make wishes to the gods. Taihei then invites Umaru to the shrine on New Year's Day. After taking the lucky spell paper, they both made a wish and prayed silently. They initially agreed not to tell each other's wishes to quickly come true. But Umaru even told her brother her strange wish, and he seemed to understand. One day, Motoba makes cookies that she plans to give to Umaru. Although it failed because it was burnt and the cake was eaten by Bomber, she finally managed to make delicious cookies and presented them to Umaru. However, when Motoba was in class, she stumbled so that the cookies she was carrying fell and scattered on the floor. Umaru realized that Motoba had gone to great lengths to make these cakes, then picked up the cakes and ate happily. Taihei, who had just come home from work, found burnt cookies on the table and mistook them for chocolate. Meanwhile, Nana invites Umaru to make chocolate together. Because Umaru can't cook, she asks Taihei for help. By following Taihei's directions, Umaru and Nana finally made very delicious chocolate. Nana would give the chocolates to Taihei, but she was too shy, so she didn't want to. One day, Umaru gets a call from Sylphan asking her to go to a shop that sells the latest anime merchandise. Disguised as UMR, she is seen having fun with Sylphan. Sylphan later revealed that she wasn't really interested in anime. But she pretends to be interested in pleasing her older brother, who turns out to be Alex, who loves anime. She admits that she has always been a sweet and gentle girl with her older brother. That's why she felt very embarrassed when Alex watched the game competition she participated in. After hearing Sylphan's story, Umaru then thought that Taihei might love her more if she did things he liked. Arriving at home, Umaru intended to help Taihei cook dinner, but he got the wrong idea and told her to leave. She went outside to buy various delicious snacks. Not long after, Motoba came to Umaru's house to meet Kamaru. But since Umaru was away, Motoba only met with Taihei. Because Motoba felt very awkward when dealing with other people, she trembled when Taihei looked at her. Motoba then ventured to apologize to him about the burnt cookies, where she admitted that she accidentally put the burnt cookies in. The kind-hearted Taihei, of course, forgave her mistakes. Umaru finally returns home in the late afternoon and is very happy to meet Motoba, although Taihei scolds her. A few days later, Umaru, who slept too late at night to play games, suddenly fell ill and asked Taihei's permission not to go to school. She only had a mild fever and wanted to laze at home while being pampered by her brother. However, Taihei insists on going to work and leaving Umaru to Nana because he thinks Umaru is deliberately making herself sick. After all, she doesn't think about her health and is too busy playing games. Feeling very irritated, Umaru intends to avenge Taihei and devises a plan to make him fall ill. Unexpectedly, Taihei finally really had a high fever. But Umaru thought that he was just pretending. She then called Taihei's workplace and told him that Taihei was sick and couldn't come to work. After that, Umaru went to the supermarket to shop for groceries. She intends to prank her brother by buying green onions and spicy sauce. However, when she got home, she realized that her brother was really sick and didn't pretend, so she cared for him until he recovered. Taihei is finally completely healed by nightfall and thanks Umaru for taking care of him. He then cooked dinner, and because Umaru bought too many scallions, he cooked a dish that used a lot of scallions and peppers. Umaru, who doesn't really like vegetables, finally couldn't help but taste the dish that had been served by her brother because she didn't want to disappoint him. The next day, Taihei gave Umaru a lunch and said that it did not contain peppers and green onions. But as it turned out, he made beefsteak topped with pepper sauce and spring onions. Since Nana said that the person who prepared the lunch must have worked hard to make the delicious dish, Umaru decided to finish her lunch because her brother had gone to great lengths to make the delicious dish for her. One day, Umaru accidentally spills a drink on the Wi-Fi device, which then causes the device to malfunction. Because the Wi-Fi device is broken, she can't do any activities such as playing games, watching anime, or others. When Taihei finally came home from work, he looked surprised at Umaru, who looked so down. Bomber, who was visiting, tried to comfort Umaru, who felt bored because she couldn't do fun things without an internet connection. Umaru went to an internet cafe the next day and rented a 7-hour room. However, she quickly became bored and only spent 3 hours there. She then rushed home because she missed her brother very much and was more comfortable in her own home. The scene then switches to the past, when Taihei was still in high school. He was the smartest and most accomplished student. He has been friends with Bomber since he was in high school and their manager, Kanao. One day, Bomber takes Taihei and Kana to the playground and challenges them to a puppet claw machine. Since Bomber and Kana failed to get the dolls they wanted, Taihei used his intelligence to get 3 dolls and gifts for Bomber, Kana, and Umaru. Turning to the present, Taihei is preparing to attend a grand meeting. At the meeting, Taihei and his team will present their proposals that have been frequently rejected by the company leadership. Hearing this, Umaru intended to buy a lot of snacks to cheer her brother up if he failed again. Towards evening, Taihei finally came home, and he looked lethargic. Umaru thought that he had failed again and tried to comfort her brother. But as it turned out, Taihei and his team managed to present everything very well, and their proposal was approved by the board of directors. Hearing this, Umaru looked happy and disappointed because she should have bought a cake for her brother. The next day, Nana visited Umaru's house and gave a sack of rice produced by her hometown. Taihei looks happy and thanks her for the gift. As an expression of gratitude, he plans to make a delicious lunch and invites Nana to eat together, although Umaru insists on ordering pizza anyway. However, after tasting the rice given by Nana, Umaru became addicted instead and finished her lunch. Not wanting to disappoint his sister, Taihei then allowed Umaru and Nana to order pizza, and they were very happy. On the next day off, Umaru invites Nana to eat out with Taihei to celebrate Taihei's success at work. Taihei said that they could order any food and in any portion. Umaru and Nana didn't hesitate to order a large parfait. Taihei wasn't sure at first that they could finish the dish, but apparently they were able to devour it until there was nothing left and instead wanted to add another dish. The rainy season has arrived. However, Umaru was not excited because she didn't like the rainy season, and neither did Motoba, who thought that the rainy season was very gloomy. Taihei tried to cheer up the 2 girls by telling some fun things about the rainy season, but they didn't care much about it, so he decided to talk about summer to lighten the mood. When summer finally comes, Umaru looks excited and celebrates by eating ice cream with her friends. She even bought a cooler to store her favorite ice cream and asked Taihei to make shaved ice. One day Umaru, who was watching television, was interested in a car advertisement and suggested that her brother buy a car. Taihei seems surprised by Umaru's request, but he did intend to buy a car and already has a driver's license. Umaru urges him to buy a large-capacity car to invite other friends to go to the beach together. Taihei looked touched and thought that she really cared about her friends, even though she wants a big car so she can sleep comfortably. Taihei could not find a suitable car, and because he wasn't very good at driving, they finally decided to take Bomber and borrow his car. Umaru invites Nana and Motoba to go on vacation to the beach together. However, Motoba didn't know that her brother was coming. When Bomber finally arrived, driving his car, Motoba immediately hid and disguised her appearance so as not to be caught. Despite her imperfect disguise, Bomber doesn't recognize his little sister and is instead attracted to Nana. Bomber doesn't recognize Umaru in her beautiful mode because he has only met her in chibi mode. After a long journey, Umaru and the others finally arrived at their destination beach and decided to have some fun. When Motoba was alone with Umaru, she asked about Kamaru's whereabouts because, so far, she had not known that Umaru and Kamaru were the same people. When Umaru was about to admit the truth, their conversation was distracted by Bomber, who made a small commotion on the beach. Motoba then reveals that Bomber is her older brother, but their relationship is not as close as Umaru and Taihei. She then tells Umaru about her past when Bomber embarrassed her in front of her school friends, and then she beat him. After that incident, everyone thought of Motoba as a scary girl and stayed away from her. Umaru and the others then went to the giant aquarium to see the marine animals up close, and Bomber said that his sister was very happy to visit there. Because he said that his sister was very fierce and often beat him, Motoba, who had been touched by Bomber's words, suddenly felt angry and then hit him until he collapsed helplessly. After that, Umaru, Nana, and Motoba decided to swim and accidentally met Sylphan, who was on vacation with her brother. Seeing Umaru, Sylphan was moved to compete with her again. However, Umaru even invited her to play with them, and they all seemed to be happily enjoying their vacation. They can finally have fun until the holidays are over and return home feeling happy. Umaru hopes that they can take all vacation together again and spend time having fun one day. A few days later, Umaru and Taihei return to their usual routine. Bomber tells Taihei that he wants to take another vacation with him and his sisters. Hearing this, Taihei plans to take Umaru and the others to the mountains next summer vacation. He then expressed his wish to Umaru, who seemed normal in responding and said she just wanted to focus on lazing around on vacation. They then got into an argument, and the first season of this anime finally ended. The moral that can be learned from this anime is to love our brothers and sisters because they will always be there to support and accept us. Even though Umaru always bothers her brother and often pranks him, she really cares about him and always loves him. Likewise, Taihei will always do various ways to make his beloved sister happy and loves Umaru with all his heart.